what inspired you to start Blogging Theology? Where did the idea come from?
Well, it started very humbly because during the COVID lockdown 3 or 4 years ago, it was very difficult time for many of us. It was quite isolating. We weren't really, supposed to go out very much, and most of us didn't go to work for a period to avoid, spreading COVID, that kind of thing. So I bought a new MacBook Pro, had some spare cash, and sought to upgrade my my software and my hardware. And I just started producing videos with the idea of just communicating to people, if anyone was there, things that interested me. So I made videos about the New Testament or about Christianity, sometimes about Islam, sometimes whatever. So it was my just spontaneous attempt just to reach out at that time of, great isolation for many of us, even in London. It was like an apocalyptic scene out there in central London on a Saturday. I walked down there and there was like no one there. Everyone was hiding indoors for fear of COVID. It's quite extraordinary. So that was the context. There was no intention of producing a channel or of any significance, no vision, no goals, other than me just blogging about what I liked. So I just blog theology.
Okay, so just going back to the lockdown, I have to say we in Melbourne, Australia is known for having its longest lockdowns. We even had curfews and it was pretty strict. So yeah, it was very difficult times. And what a great time for you to think, okay, what can I do with my time? And this was a good way for you to reach out to people. But did it evolve? Did you find, oh, okay, there's an audience out there?
Well, yeah,
How did it
I
continue?
did over the weeks and months. It suddenly sort of took off. I was getting, over 1,000 new subscribers every day for like ages. It just went up and up and up, and so I thought, oh, that's fun, So, and I didn't interview people at that stage. I thought, well, I really like to interview the authors of the books I like to talk about. So I think the first one was a guy called Anthony Buzzard, wonderful name. He's a British guy living in Atlanta, Georgia, in the States, and he was a Unitarian Christian who had run a Bible college in Atlanta, and so I kind of reached out to him, and he amazingly said that he would have an interview. So we had a fantastic time, about an hour and a half, chatting about the historical Jesus, the Gospels, and obviously his beliefs were similar to Muslims. In some ways, Jesus not being God and so on, the Trinity being unbiblical. So that was my first breakthrough in terms of interviewing. And then I kind of sent out emails to other authors and they kindly said yes. And so that began a kind of tradition of interviewing people, as well as doing my own videos. So, and I just again, I didn't have any grand plan or any vision to establish Blogging Theology. I think it was just who do I want to interview next? It's just very much motivated by my own interests rather than what will please the viewers. And I remember being given some very good advice, apparently, by people who really knew about YouTube. Said, Paul, don't make videos longer than 10 minutes because people don't have the attention span. They're not going to watch any long videos. And I ignore that completely. I thought, well, I don't really care. I'm not here to get views. I'm not here to satisfy the market. I'm here just to do what I want. Thank you very much. So I ignored that advice. And thank goodness.
Yes.
Because people do want content that's more than TikTok length. And they want serious content. So I ignore that. And I think, for example, a couple of years ago, I did a video with Professor Carl Sharif El-Tubki from Brandeis University in the States on LGBT and Islam. And it was 4 hours long, an academic video from a brilliant scholar. He taught at Yale for years as well. And it's had over 250,000 views. And it became a gold standard on the Islamic response on LGBT for a period. And others used his material. And, this is 4 hours long, this video.
Did you have a break between that? I just can't imagine having a conversation for 4 hours.
Breaks. So it was good content and invaluable resource for an intelligent, scholarly response to the whole LGBT agenda and how Islam understands it and what we should do in response. So, yeah, so I ignore that bit of advice.
Yeah, like you did, because definitely, I think with these conversations, let's call them you have, we call them interviews, but people feel like they're a fly in the room and they're actually listening into a conversation which they otherwise would not have the opportunity. So it sounds like you're giving that access, that opportunity into, yeah, conversations and insights that you may not be able to get in books, for example. So it's great that you've been able to do it. I suppose you have interviewed a lot of people over the years. Two questions. I'll ask the first one first. Is there a particular interview? You did mention just one now, but is there a particular interview that really stands out to you and you thought, wow, that just blew my mind?
Yeah, well, there are lots of them actually. It's hard to choose. There's so many good ones that I've been fortunate enough to people I've been fortunate enough to meet. I mean, Dr. Ataie's videos are hugely popular. He's a professor at Zaytuna College in
Yes.
California, and he's an absolute expert on Christianity and Christian Zionism and historical Jesus and so on. So he's extremely popular, and but there are other kind of standalone videos which had a huge impact in some ways. There's an English academic called Keith Ward, still alive. He's a professor of divinity at Oxford University, and he's probably Britain's leading Christian theologian and philosopher. He has these dual roles. He's quite a very talented guy. And I've been aware of him as a Christian. I used to read his stuff. And as a Muslim, I interviewed him and asked him. I knew the answer to the question. I said, "Well, what do you think about the Prophet Muhammad?" And he said, as expected, "Well, I think he's an authentic prophet of God." And he went on a bit about that. So I thought, well, that's very nice. Thank you for saying that on camera. And then I had the good sense to ask him a follow-up question. I said, "Well, what about your colleagues? Now, these are the top level Christian theologians and philosophers in the world. What do they think about Muhammad?" Because he knows these people; they're his colleagues. He said, "Oh yeah, the vast majority of them believe he's a prophet as well."
Oh,
and,
wow.
and I thought, did you just say that? And of course, I tried not to react and look shocked because I wasn't expecting him to say that. Um, and I asked him a bit about why because he was a priest, why he hadn't embraced Islam. And you can watch the video, just type in Keith Ward Blogging Theology interview. But I remember Tim Winter, also known as Abdul Hakim Murad from Cambridge University, a very famous Islamic scholar in the UK, emailing me saying that's absolute gold dust, Paul, that he said that on camera on the interview. And it was remarkable because it means that the Christian ulama, as I call them, basically have accepted the point that Muhammad was a prophet. And it's not difficult to see why, because, if he looks like a prophet, talks like a prophet, he's very similar to Moses, a father of a nation, a leader, a lawgiver, a preacher of monotheism in the same way that the Israeli prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Micah, Hosea, etc. He's very, very similar in many ways. So, his message is incredible. So I'm not surprised that experts look beyond their cultural baggage and see what's there. The question is why they haven't embraced Islam, and that's a different subject.
But it also in Christianity, isn't prophethood viewed differently to how prophethood is viewed in Islam? Because they
Yes.
would consider Mother Teresa possibly to be a prophet, for example, because of the good work she does.
No, they wouldn't consider her. I've never heard of a Christian. Have you heard of a Christian calling her a prophet?
Yeah, well, based on some conversations, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
basically, it's
I've never heard
prophethood is
that.
different.
The,
Mhm.
the Catholic Church has not proclaimed her as a prophet. She was a Catholic nun. No, a prophethood is understood differently, particularly in the New Testament. It's if you go by the writings of Paul, it's one of the gifts of the Spirit. So you can have a prophetic gift, you can have a gift of speaking in tongues, you can have a gift of this, a gift of that, or a gift of prophecy. So it's quite, potentially anyone could be a prophet in that sense. But the prophethood I'm referring to is in the Jewish Bible.
Mm.
The prophets like Moses and the others I mentioned. that these are people, I mean, not all of them are lawgivers. So Moses is the great prophet of Judaism. So in that sense, Muhammad does closely resemble Moses as a giver of law, and so on. So, and Abraham as well, and others. So yeah, I think there are some similarities, but there are differences for sure, and that's mainly on the Christian side, I think.
Right, right. I see. Okay, so it sounds like you've had some very interesting conversations. And then, so my second question would be, considering you've interviewed so many people, do you run out of people to interview? Do you think, okay, who's next? Who do I approach now?
Well, I as a two said, but yes, I do who I interview next. This is true, but I don't think am I going to run out of ideas because I have a very expansive understanding of what theology means. So theology isn't just a narrow academic exercise undertaken by dons at Cambridge. Theology is about life. It's about the universe. It's to do with God's universe, because theology literally means talk about God. So I'm anything. Well, apart from perhaps cooking and football, that's a joke. But virtually anything can be spoken about from a theological perspective. So whether it be politics, economics, obviously faith itself. So that there's a constant stream of things that one can speak about in the news. What's going on now? We're talking about Zionism, even though Israel's a secular state officially, religion is very much part of it, considering Christian Zionism and so on. And there's always things to talk about, I find, and there's always books to read and discuss issues with. So that's not been an issue really, but yes, I do ask who do I interview next, because one has to think about that. But I'm not yet run out of ideas anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you will, because as you said, things are always happening. There's new scholars emerging, and I do see that sometimes you have some scholars that you bring back, a number of times, probably
Regular
because
guests. No, I do.
yeah,
I'm very fortunate. There are regular guests who we regulate. I mean, Dr. Ataie is one of them. So yeah.
that's right. So a conversation you can't finish in 4 hours. You might need to call them back for another podcast, possibly.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, these are ongoing conversations about life, universe, and everything. And theology is the queen of the sciences, as they used to say in medieval world in Europe. And so it encompasses all things, whether it be science or technology, politics, rulership, but more narrowly, obviously, defined aspects of faith like Christology, and so on. So it is a very, very rich field, really.
So considering you have a huge viewing, so you have close to 800,000 subscribers, is that correct? With
No,
Blogging
it's
Theology?
550,000 or something.
Okay. Well, maybe that's going to be what it will be soon, hoping.
Well,
Maybe it's well.
yeah, but I've reached. I'm not really looking at viewer numbers or subscribers. It's really the content, really, and yeah.
I appreciate that authenticity. It's really about you're trying to add value, and it sounds like you really enjoy those conversations more. So it's obviously the
Mostly,
viewers will benefit too, but you
yeah,
get a lot out of those conversations.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
with the viewing, and I guess some of the videos have received high viewership. What kind of comments do you get? And do you read the comments? You must get thousands of comments, really.
Yeah, I read them for several reasons. One, because there are some trolls who come on and put stuff up there that shouldn't be in there, and I do ban them, but they keep on coming back. But I have to kind of do some weeding, get rid of the weeds, because the comments there wouldn't be appropriate on any website, let alone mine. But also, I do like to read them because I'm interested in what people say, how they respond to the content, and I do respond sometimes. I can't respond to everything because there's too many, but I do try to read everything for sure. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It sounds like it does take a lot of your time, but something that's extremely valuable. And like I mentioned, I know I've watched a number of your videos, and I know a number of other people have as well. So yeah, it's extremely valuable. Can I just ask you, there are many misconceptions about Islam and Muslims out there. Are there particular ones that really, in a way, press your buttons, or the ones that you would really like clarified, maybe that you try to make effort through your channels and through your platform to clarify?
Well, I do in my own small way trying to clarify these some of these issues. But you know, there is a rising tide of the far right and of Islamophobia in the West, and I include obviously Australia in that, which is worrying. And it's less to do with the information, the truth about Islam not being there. It is out there, it is available, but there seems often to be a willful desire to misunderstand and misrepresent Islam deliberately. And that's a shame, because then we're not dealing with ignorance here. We're dealing with a certain malevolent or malicious intent to misrepresent or slander Muslims. And there we're going into evil rather than just misunderstandings or people being ignorant. There is that too. But there is this rise of the far right and Islamophobia, and it's worrying because it's not just, it will affect people's lives more negatively. So the future is uncertain to us. And there are certain new issues that have arisen in recent years, like the age of Aisha, for example, which, when I became a Muslim wasn't really an issue at all, but suddenly become an issue, and that's been weaponized to attack Islam. And again, there's a lot of willful misunderstanding about that issue, and hypocritical misunderstanding, particularly by Christians. How old was Mary when she married Joseph? Usually about 12 or younger. So yeah, it's a difficult time, but there are lots of talented, increasingly very well educated young Muslims involved in dawah, some of whom are getting their PhDs, young scholars, rising generation, very encouraging. So we are seeing a sophisticated pushback, engagement with these issues, but we're dealing with geopolitical factors here with Trump and so on, which are beyond our individual control. Obviously, we're seeing this in Gaza, how powerless apparently we are to stop genocide. So yeah, there are lots of challenges.
You mentioned that there is this strong right-wing lobby, or I guess attacks sometimes as well. In Australia, about 30 to 40% of the population, based on census, does not believe in religion. So that's growing every single year in Australia, and I'm guessing it could be the same in the UK. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this can be misleading. I remember reading similar statistics about the UK when some papers were saying, the rise of atheism in the West and so on. But this isn't really true, because there are other surveys that have shown, some surveys done by Oxford, for example, who surveyed atheists' opinions around the world, from Japan, Europe, Finland, South America. And the majority of atheists, and you can Google this, the majority of atheists believe in the supernatural. So they may believe, for example, in angels. They may believe in life after death. They may believe in supernatural good and evil. They may believe in karma. They may believe in life after death. Now they say, well, I don't believe in God, but what God is it they're not believing in? They're not believing in this old man in the sky or something. Well, yeah, I don't believe in that either. So when people say they're not religious, it may mean that they're not members of the Catholic Church, but it doesn't mean they're hardcore atheists like Richard Dawkins is. He rejects anything non-material. That doesn't follow, and it is not the case. So one shouldn't assume if a person says, "Oh, I'm not religious," so therefore they're an atheist in that narrow materialist sense. They may believe in life after death. They may believe in angels. We just don't know. You have to ask them. You have to engage in conversation. You may find that they have beliefs which are strikingly religious, as we would call them, although they would deny being religious. So these opinion polls or surveys can be misleading if we draw the wrong conclusion, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because the census does say no religion. It doesn't say atheist. So just because they don't want a religion,
sometimes no religion equals atheist. It doesn't. In fact, you can still have people sometimes say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. This is a very common trope. I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not religious. Well, for me, that's saying the same thing. they are the same thing, but people don't frame it like that. They're moving away from institutional religion. I think this is what's happening, but it doesn't mean they're becoming atheists. They're becoming something else. So some of them may get involved in witchcraft or the occult as well. So there's malign things they could be getting, dangerous things they could be getting in. But these are not. Oh, I'm definitely not. Oh, I don't believe in God. I'm not religious, but I practice witchcraft. Okay, well, how do you classify that person? So one has to, particularly when speaking to people who call themselves non-religious, to find out to listen to what they do believe, because there may be points of similarity or contact or connection with Islam or Abrahamic faith in general.
Definitely needs more digging deep. Thank you. That brings me to the end of all my questions. And I guess, did you have any last comments or reflections that you were thinking about and didn't get a chance to share?
Not really. I would encourage obviously Muslims and non-Muslims to read the Quran every day. I think it's such an extraordinary book, and life-changing, and it really helps to ground us in truth. And so I just encourage people to read the Quran in a good translation, or in the Arabic if they're fortunate enough to be able to do that. So that would be the kind of one thing I would suggest, and also to perhaps a much less popular suggestion, which I always apologize when I make it, but I do really encourage people to read books. Actually, I don't mean watch YouTube videos, but I mean actual books. Read good
What about
books.
listening? Audibles? No?
Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, fine, yeah, but no, that's fine. But to read or listen to the great literature of the world, whether it be Charles Dickens or Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, or great writers in the Islamic tradition, whether it be Al-Ghazali or Ibn Taymiyyah or whatever, just to study and learn beyond the TikTok, beyond Twitter. And books really are the best way of doing this. Not the only way, but I think we are, many of us have lost the habit of reading, and there are lots of pressures to put us off reading. I see that. But I think we should make the effort and engage with great literature and great works.
True. Great advice. Once again, thank you for your time, Paul, and appreciate all the insight and your reflections.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.